Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Speaking About Speaking with me, Jackie Goddard, and my fabulous guest, Fab Giovanetti. Hello, Fab.
Hello, hi Jackie, how you doing?
I do fine. How are you doing? Sounds like you've had a busy day.
Slightly overly caffeinated, which could be a good or a bad thing. We'll decide it by the end of this chat.
I'm sure it's a very good thing. I'm going to introduce you very, very quickly as native Italian. So you've been over for a while, so we'll have a chat about that. An award-winning author, which is quite a feat. Yeah, well done. Entrepreneur and marketing consultant. And you help busy professionals reclaim their time. So just on that, look, talking about an author, here is your reclaim your time off, the three-step solution to your overworking. So let's start there then. Tell us a little bit how that first book came about and why you decided to write it.
That's an excellent question. Also, that baby book is the baby that got the award as well. So it's kind of like nice when we show it off. It's like, oh, there you are, little tiny baby. I know you usually don't talk. I mean, if you're an author, you might relate to the fact that we tend to talk about books as babies for some unforeseen reason. So the book has been written for longer than its inception. What do I mean by that? I wanted to write this book for a while because the cliche of we write or we teach what we need to learn the most is definitely applicable to that book. Cue today, being caffeinated, trying to catch up on all the things I have to do. So I've always been somebody that wants to do a lot, can do a lot. I got big goals and big vision. And one of the things has been that, obviously, because of that, one of the best and most important currencies that has been time is something that I struggle to manage and find the balance. And funnily enough, as I learned how to get better at that and be more mindful at that, so many of my clients, especially when I was only doing consulting, came to me for that specific reason. When we kind of dug deeper into the reasons why they were not seeing results they wanted, or they kind of wanted to do more, but they struggled, time came back again and again. So I wrote this book before it got picked up because I knew that I wanted to talk about how I was able to find ways to support myself and help myself reclaiming that time. And then I wasn't really be able to find a publisher, and I almost settled to self-publish because I self-published my first book. So I was like, fine, we'll do it again. I knew that I wanted this book to be out. And then the big P word happened, the middle times, right? So when the pandemic hit, this book actually became a lot more interesting for publishers. This is just the honest truth, which kind of makes sense because people wanted to work smarter from home. They wanted to reclaim their boundaries. And a lot of this book is about that. And it can be applicable for any time in our lives. So that's kind of how it came about. The reason why I wrote it and then how it actually got itself out there in the way that it did is thanks to the fact that I kept pushing and having the vision. And then by doing that, I kept showing up. And the right time came as I was almost saying, okay, I'm going to self-publish you. But then,
Wow.
the universe played an interesting trick. And so there she is.
Yeah, I mean that's quite strange to think of actually, because the title "Reclaiming Your Time Off." In the pandemic, it felt like we all had that time, and actually, it's quite strange to think that that's what happened. That suddenly people were looking. Sorry, I'm seeing your mute sign on there, and I just suddenly panicked. Thought, oh, perhaps I'd pressed a button I should have not, but no, that's fine. So yeah, it was just quite strange that in lockdown, when we all had so much time, that actually, when you think about it, yeah, if people were having to work at home, those boundaries, as you know, the boundary between work and home isn't there anymore, is it? So yeah, you do need some strategy.
I also find that I was part of these people. I've been in business and running my own business for 10 years. So what's happened with me is that I've always been somebody that managed to keep herself very busy, and fellow self-employed entrepreneurs, small business owners, we were constantly pivoting during those 2 years, especially like at the beginning and obviously in the middle of the pandemic, because a lot of us, I also had offline events as well as online events. And a lot of my business was offline, but also online as well. And that really put a huge spanner in the works with me, like many other people as well, obviously. And so I actually was busy at that time because I was trying to figure out what was I going to do next. And I didn't have any other type of support than myself. So I found that even a lot of my dear readers and the people that came through and kind of helped me review the book and read the book, it was easy for me to find these people because us that were trying to figure out how to adapt our businesses to such a big change, we were working a lot and boundaries were more blurred than ever. So I love the fact that it was applicable for a lot more people than maybe it would have been. But it was interesting that generally for me, I found that I was busier than what I expected it to be because of the fact that I had to pivot and change and adapt everything
Yeah.
about my business.
Yeah, it was a strange time for everybody. If there is anybody out there watching or listening and you'd like to ask a question, put in a comment, then do join us. The comments are there, so I will endeavour to go through them as they come in. But if you've got any questions for Fab, then please do ask. Let's go back even further then. So obviously you grew up in Italy. When did you come over here? When did the marketing kind of start? Was that something that brought you here, or tell us about how you ended up in the UK?
I've been in the UK for now 14 years, 13 to 14 years. Marketing is something that I was doing at uni as well. So I was doing a bit of that because I wanted to be a music journalist, Jackie. That was my dream. That was like, I'm gonna be a music journalist. And then I started being a music journalist and nobody would pay me. And I was like, great, okay, I'm gonna do everything else while I try to become a music journalist. And when I came to the UK for 1 year of studying Erasmus, which was a thing and now still is, but a bit different. But I could come abroad, study. Fun fact, I went to Bath of all the universities in the UK because it was one of the few that had Russian, and I my degree was in English and Russian literature and language. So I generally fell in love with everything. The country, the culture, weirdly enough. And I just found that I could see myself having opportunities here that I wouldn't have had at home when be what I wanted to do. And so I finished my degree, and then the year later, I came back. And as the dream goes, I came back and I started working at Nando's for
Yay!
for 9 months. I was the woman, and one of the funny thing about that is I remember that job so fondly because I was passionate. I was giving to those customers and to that poor old chicken everything I could. So whatever job I would do, even when I was picking up Pears when I was at home, I always gave my best. And so I was doing that while I was trying to make it. And as a music journalist, obviously, I was doing that unpaid, but I was also doing a lot of unpaid marketing for PR. PRs in the music scene. And so I kept working at that. And then at some point, a paid internship came about being a community manager, kind of like a social media manager, but at the time it was a bit more blurred the lines for a ticket event company. And I said yes, and I got in, and then I got a proper job there, and that skyrocketed my career. So it started for a different reason, but I was still following what I wanted to do in my dream. And then the dream kept changing and evolving. But there's something about the Italian in me is the energy that you hear and see, and it's not just powered by the coffee. But then there's something about this culture, which I know some British people were like, that really speaks to me. Like some people, they go abroad and find something in that culture that speaks to who they are and how they see the world. And so it's been really fascinating to me because I wasn't expecting it to fall in love with so many things about the UK, and I'm still here.
You're still here. Fabulous. Bath, though, Bath is beautiful anyway. So I can imagine that there is that kind of that pull. Because I mean, it's Italy to me is just beautiful. I love Italy. And Bath has an element of that kind of historic. I don't know. It's just beautiful. Can I just pick up on the fact? Did you say you were picking up pears?
Yes.
So back home, was that a family business or that was a
So year one, I did as a summer job to pay for a new camera. In year two, I paid for my first laptop with that money. So I just
wow.
wanted to kind of pay for those things. And so I was like, I'm gonna do what I can do. And again, talking about Bath being very related to like Italy in some ways, I think it spoke to me a lot, and the fact that it was still very small. So it's very small, beautiful, beautiful city or town, depends on how you want to call it. But and it kind of felt the right size coming from the countryside where there was a lot of cows, there was a lot of fields, as well as people. My hometown is not huge, so you had a lot of summer jobs and things you could do, and that was my first proper summer job, like August picking up pears. Woo! It's intense, and it taught me so much about a lot of things that are not just about picking up pears. And yeah, I remember that I was really committed. I had a couple of things I wanted to buy, so for 2 years in a row, I did that. And yeah, it taught me a lot of things also that I even use in business today, which is really interesting.
Well, that's a question right there. I mean, quickly before we go on to that one, we would say hello to Mark. Hey,
Hello.
Mark. And hello to Christoph. Hey, hello,
Hello.
hello. So what did you learn then from pear picking that you now use in your business today?
Patience, but not in a very granular way. So what I mean is obviously patience, and everybody's like, okay, Fab, I get it. But let me go a bit deeper. Patience when it comes to doing the little things or doing the repeating things that you don't know that you want to do, or you don't feel like you want to do, but you have to do it anyway. So you're just gonna embrace them and just keep on going. Even the little things, the mundane things in business, it can be admin, it can be other things. And at some point, obviously in business, then you can delegate, and that is where things evolve, right? But I think is that reminder that at some point, at the beginning, at the middle, and even sometimes when you've been in business for 20 years, there is that chance that you have to step back and go back to doing the basics. And so honestly, spending about 5 hours baked in the sun in August, which is hard, just picking up the pears, checking them. What you do, you have two metal, or you at the time you had two metal discs, and you, in order to know which class they were in, you will have to put them in the disc, and depending on their size of their bum, only their bum, they will go into the different boxes, right? So it was tedious. It was repeated. It was like repetition, not necessarily in the best possible way. And the other thing that it taught me also that I use today as well is the attention to detail to some things. I've always been very much like that, but I remember that I thought the amount of like detail that I had to go into when it comes to just picking up that pear and making sure that I made the right decision. So I just think that it really sharpened some of these things for me, and it gave me a lot of acceptance about the small jobs or the repeating jobs, and also like the value of embracing these and kind of seeing the value in everything. And I love that Christoph is like, the caption says picking up pears. Yes, I wanted to guess what that would mean if that was what the caption really.
Yeah, picking up PAIRS rather than PEARS, picking up pears. That's a whole other job. So, if I'd see, that's put me off what I was going to say then. I mean, I listened to, who was I listening to? I think it was Daniel Priestley, who was on a podcast recently, and he was talking about as a 15-year-old working for McDonald's, but the things that he took just from that job, he uses again today. He was obviously looking at the process, what they did and how they worked. And I think that's really, relevant. That's really a great way for young people coming into any kind of business, when they are doing these like menial, mundane jobs, is to actually, what can you learn? What do you learn? What can you take into your future from those kind of jobs? But it does sound like you are a very committed person. The way that you work, the way that you take on things, you are quite committed. You've written 2 books. You've started a business, which is very successful. You came onto the stage at the Creator Day that Mark put together in April, I think. Now I've forgotten.
Yes.
And you bounced onto the stage, and I have to show this photograph here. You came on like Tigger, and to explain what your business is, and because I think it was all about community, wasn't it? And you've built this community with Alt Marketing. Tell us a little bit about how that came about and what it is why you have started it as a school that you are the CEO and head teacher of. How did that come about, and what's the idea around making it a school?
That's a great question. And I just love that picture. Like those pictures I created today. To be honest, I'm gonna be kind of fully honest. And I did another event a couple of weeks later. Yeah. And the pictures are similar. So every single time I'm on stage, I genuinely look like I'm about to kind of like, I call it Fab the Preacher vibe, and then it's become a thing. But every single every single picture I have from any speaking gig this year is like that. So yeah, it's an experience. Back to your question. Why school? Because there's two reasons. So actually the original reason, which funnily enough is not maybe the one that I think is more aligned with the bigger picture, funnily enough, but the original reason was um I knew that I wanted to provide marketers with a way of learning that could be a really good quality, like kind of driven, obviously, way of learning. One of our taglines is and was university standards, not prices. So we really prize ourselves in doing that as something. And that was the original before we even tested it with the students, right? So because of that, and because I've been doing before about 7 years of courses and training and curriculum design for mainly individuals and solopreneurs, but I also helped some of my clients doing that. So I was learning how to teach a lot, and also part of my degree had that like didactics and pedagogy and stuff that I could have pursued afterwards, but I didn't. So it's always been inside of me anyway. So that was the original. I was like, well, I want to build a better way to learn and to teach, because I was a self-taught marketer, but obviously I also did different courses and different training to learn about marketing, but so much of it felt outdated, didn't feel like it was supporting what I really wanted to do, and it didn't really stand the test of time. So I was like, I'm a bit fed up with this. Why is there's nothing like this? Guess what? I'm going to build it myself. Going to the second part, which is where it's actually more relevant right now, I think, is that the reason why I came and joined that Creator Day was because we were talking to Mark, and it was like, well, you have that, kind of going against the giant experience of building your community and the school, because I want this school to give the same opportunities that, again, this is the dream, obviously, but that other type of education can give marketers, because I want marketers that are from underrepresented communities that might not be able to afford, for plenty of reasons, a different type of education, or they might not be able to even get the type of support that they want with their education because it's crowded, because there's a lot of people. I want to give them that level of support. I want to make them feel like they're superstars, because they are. I want to make them feel like they can get whatever they want when it comes to their dreams if they're committed to learn and to support each other's. And that means that the way that they market is also more positive for everybody. So there's that element of what we call positive impact marketing, marketing to hearts. And so this is why we actually, now it makes sense and why I chose the school almost like instinctively at the time, because I don't want to be just another type of training that you see online. I want us to get to the point where we can give the same level of confidence in the qualification that you will get from bigger organizations. These are our competitors in the most loving way. There's space for everybody. But if people want to learn in a way that is fun, in a way that is timeless, in a way that is supported, that is a community and that feels like they're part of a family, they can come to us. So I don't know if I'm answering the question, but this is how, funnily enough, is the same reason, but it has evolved.
Yes. No, I can imagine. These things do evolve. You start with one thing and end up with something completely different. But it sounds like it's evolved into a place that you are happy with. Yeah, I mean, you obviously the courses that you run are in person, and you stand up the front of the class delivering your lesson, and I love the teacher or preacher kind of that kind of thing, because I can see that absolutely, and I feel the same when I'm in front of an audience, or in front of a class, or in front of a workshop, whatever it is that you're doing. If you don't bring the energy to the room, then it's very difficult to engage the people that are listening to you, whether they're students or they're an audience. So what for you sort of came first? Was it the speaking or the teaching?
That's a great question. One thing I have to say is that all of our teaching is online. So,
Okay.
which is the struggle. And that's kind of the reason why probably, I mean, in general, I think my offline energy will be the same, to be honest. That's kind of like an excuse. It's only because I need to put up online. No, it's not. I will probably be exactly the same level of crazy. But I find that because I've been teaching online for such a long time, so the teaching, I think the speaking came first, but it was such a um, humbling experience because it was way before I started teaching. But then I dropped it for a bit. And then I started teaching a couple of years after I started my business for other colleges and other organizations. And then I just got, I got so much good feedback that I knew I had the knack of it. But I knew that the online has always been online. And I knew that the online challenge was there when it came to keeping people awake and alert, even before the Zoom days, even before Zoom was a thing, right? So the teaching, to me, when I think about it, officially came first, because I only did one speaking gig and then I left it for a bit. And definitely the teaching helped me a lot with my speaking, because, and again, this is my personal experience, obviously, but from my personal experience, keeping a group of people engaged when you're teaching to them, you need to get a lot of tools in your toolkit to do that, to be very, especially adults, is almost as, there's a different challenge. I used to be an educator for kids, so I know they're a tough crowd too. Trust me, I got that crowd too
I've
as
been
well.
there.
Way back in the day. But I think that taught me a lot about how I approach my speaking now. That learning how to teach in a way that is engaging, that keeps people alert, that keeps them engaged, and that keeps them attentive to what I'm saying. Then I could replicate that with the speaking, and I think then the confidence grew from that as well.
Yeah, I've taught little ones as well, and it's like herding cats, and if you give them a second where you don't know what you're doing, they're gone. That's it. They're climbing the walls. So yeah, I'm quite glad I've left all that behind, and adults are so much more fun. They really are. And they have so much more fun. It feels to me, because they're at, they're at a stage where they're told they're not allowed to have fun. And actually, what I enjoy as a teacher is to see them actually enjoying the process, and that's what it comes down to for me. So tell me about the first speaking experience then. What was so humbling about it? What did you find humbling?
It was the fact that I thought I could hold a room, talking about kids, kind of like, obviously that's the other thing, right? Like holding a room with kids. They were adults, by the way. But I thought I could hold the room by creating, so first of all, by being in front of an audience that didn't feel like it was mine, which is fine. It was also for charity. So I was like, of course, I'm going to do it, because it was actually a great opportunity. But I think I was trying to put off a persona that wasn't me. Like, if you ever saw me speaking, or if you ever listened to me on the podcast, me as the beautiful boho queen that flows around doing meditations, I can do it, but it's just not me. So I was struggling to hold that quiet, sort of introspective space, because I am loud. I gesticulate a lot. I will
You were
ask
in there trying to get out.
and I know that I struggle with that, because I try to build a talk and to build like a flow. Also, there was the lack of experience. I will say that too. But if I had done it now, I would have been like, no, like I had, just to kind of give context on this, I had a similar experience of, what am I going to do now? When last year I was doing a talk, I was about to do a talk. And an hour before, I was told that there were no slides. And that talk was based on a presentation with slides. That was a challenge, but like when I asked some of my friends that were there, and I didn't tell them that, some people knew, but some didn't. And they said, I would have never guessed. So because obviously I brought myself out of it, and I brought me in, and I got the interaction with the audience. And it's something that I had to learn how to interact with the audience, do in a way that feels natural to me. And all of these things that I'm saying now, at that time, I didn't do, because I was trying to kind of fit myself into the mold of somebody else. And because of that, I couldn't hold that space. It's just the truth. And maybe for other people, it's easy. For me, because of how unapologetically me I tend to be with everything I do, even way back when, I still lost the room. I still wasn't able to bring them back in. I wasn't able to kind of hold that quiet space, because I think everything inside of me was a lot different.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making sense with your experience.
You are, absolutely. Because I've got 3 Bs. And the first one is believe. Believe, breathe, be prepared. Believe is the biggest thing. If you aren't actually being yourself on stage, then the audience aren't going to believe you. It makes you feel awkward. Ooh, it's as Christoph says, this is exactly what it is. Yeah, it's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling. So yeah. But then when you get in front of a class full of people listening to you, hanging on your every word, it does build your confidence, because you start getting feedback, and the more you do it, the easier it gets. I certainly am a better speaker because of the years that I've put in front of a class of whether it's children or adults, because you know that you've got to fill that space with words or actions or something. You've got to connect. And if you don't connect, if you don't find a way of connecting, then it's very, very difficult. And if you can't be yourself, then it's even more so.
I think there's something just wanted to add quickly that is what I say at the end of every class and also every podcast episode now, which is practice makes progress. And that is, it's just like now on Inside, I have done at the very least about 500 online classes, just online classes, plus online and offline events. I've done, again, a lot of events. We've done summits as well in the last couple of years with my old company. I've done a lot of these things. So I've done probably about 700 to 800 experiences and events and classes overall. That's the other thing. I cannot obviously compare it fully with the beginning stages of that. So there's something to be said about the confidence can also be built by just understanding maybe also the persona that you want to be, not the persona, but who is the you on stage, how similar it is to the you off stage. And I don't know, again, with your clients or your students, if all of them are the same, or if you find that they slightly shift so that they can fit what is their message on stage. But I think without that practice, without that putting yourself into those shoes and figure out what works, like wiggling in it, you're not going to know.
Yeah, you need to be congruent is the word, on stage and off stage. So loved your energy at Creator Day, says Christoph. How much time do you spend honing your speaking skill without an audience? So talk of practice. So how do you practice?
For the sake of honesty, without an audience, not much. And I think it's just because, and that's maybe the context, because I do so much teaching with an audience, like all the time I'm teaching my students. So I think that became my booth camp, whether I like it or not. And because I'm trying to get the school out there, I'm teaching to other people in other communities. So I think the only stuff that I've done when it comes to practicing my speaking skills without an audience was maybe doing some recording of videos, like some of the things that maybe as the bread and butter, maybe a couple of years ago. Like, and we'll probably go like at least about 4 to 5 years ago. But in the last 3 to 4 years, I've been doing so much of the teaching with the audience, which I have to say though, a lot of these classes though are not only with individuals. If I'm doing our certification or our classes with our community, then I can see them and there's more interaction. A lot of them are not really without an audience, but they're still webinar style. So I'm getting people to interact with me in a way that is that middle ground between no audience and an audience that you have no idea how they're gauging. You have to ask them to do specific interactions to get a pulse check. So in answer to your question, not much, almost no time right now without an audience, but a lot of time with an audience that is hard to gauge and pulse check in a very instinctive way. So I have to be creative with it. And I think that also helps me hone in those speaking skills, because I can be prepared for anything because I have to think on my feet a lot when it comes to that interaction as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Creator Day talk though that you did, how did you rehearse for that, or was that you had the slide of the presentation ready and you just spoke as the slides come up? How does that process work if you're actually on a stage and you've got a certain amount of time that you need to fill?
That's a really good question. When it comes to that and some of the other talks I've done in the last couple of years, I tend to go, again, it helps. I tend to go by slides as much as possible. Even if the slides are just one word, it kind of helps me, keeping me also with my squirrel brain engaged. I would say that even if I didn't have this option of slides to bring to, let's say, Creator Day, I would still have the slides for myself, and that's how I would rehearse. I struggle with full scripted stuff, even if now I'm doing more of that because I'm doing more, obviously, on-demand lessons for our students. So sometimes the scripts help, and so I'm a bit more confident with that. But I also want to say that some of us, I think, find one route to be easier than the other. And I didn't know until I tried it, and I figured out that for me, what I would rehearse more, obviously a bit of rehearsing on the floor for timekeeping, but I would rehearse and hype myself up more for some of the activities, which, Christoph, if you were a creator today, I know you know what I'm talking about. So for these things, I would rehearse more or get myself more into that say, maybe than the talk itself, as long as I have some points that I can follow. And then if I couldn't have them on the day, I would still have them as my, almost like my cards. It wouldn't be a card. I would like to have like a slide with a couple of notes, and then I walk through it in my head, or sometimes mumbling to myself on my walks.
Yeah, I've been there as well. Do that. Everybody learns differently. You know, I get asked all the time, should I use a script? Should I memorize the script? Blah, blah, blah. You know, I advise whatever, you know, works best for you. You know, as long as you've got the bones of your talk, you know exactly what it is that you want the outcome to be for the audience, then, you know, it's up to you how you do that. I have to say, we have done our 30 minutes already, which is, I can't believe it. We've already run out of time. But I must ask you before we finish and before I show all of your details, the one question I ask, and this may well be the last time I ask this question, because Fab, you are on the last Speaking About Speaking for certainly for a while. It's gonna change over the summer and refresh and everything for the autumn. So for the last time, I'm going to ask the question: in your opinion, what makes a good speaker good and a bad speaker suck?
Oh, that's a good question. What makes a good speaker good? Empathy, I would say. That would be my thing. Empathy, and even add not just for others, but also for yourself. Kind of like be open to understand what is your energy on that day and how can you bring your best energy for where you are on that day. Because I think, as you say, people will see if you believe and you're like, I'm at a 5 and I should be at a 10. It's okay. How can I give my best at that 5? So, but also empathy for your audience, because I think when you start with that, you ask yourself, what does this audience read right now? Do they need to be energized? Do they need to be inspired, etc.? Bad. I don't know. To me, suck is, it's kind of hard because I'm thinking about what would be something that would really, like, I could see. I think it goes back to my mistake, which is trying to be something you're not, because I know how bad it was for me. I can genuinely say that it's something that I think we don't realize how much people can feel that. So trying to be somebody you're not just to fit a role, don't. Just be yourself. And I promise you, people out there and they need to hear that specifically from you.
Absolutely. And the audience will mirror however you're feeling. If you're feeling awkward and bad, uncomfortable, that's exactly how the audience will feel as well, because they can feel it from you. But thank you so much for your time, Fab. It's been fabulous. And I have been trying not to keep saying that. But here is your, but fabulous is my word. altmarketingschool.com is where people can find your fabulous school. Anything you'd like to say about what people can find on there or what they should be looking for?
If you go on altmarketingschool.com, you can find everything about us, including our courses, how to get started with the community, and also our podcast. So if you like more chats, that's definitely a good place to go for more chats as well. So go and check that out.
Brilliant. And then if people want to come and find you on Insta, that's instagram.com/Fab Giovanetti. Fabulous. Thank you so much again for your time today. I've really, really enjoyed our conversation. And whereabouts in the country are you? Are you sort of?
I am so in the U of the K. I am nearby Cambridge, so I'm slightly up.
Oh, yeah. So I was thinking it'd be lovely to meet for a coffee, but we didn't really get to chat at Creator Day, did we? Too much. We had a photo taken, I think, in our black, white, and yellow outfits. But anyway, it'd be lovely to see you again sometime soon. So good luck with everything. And yeah, thank you so much, Fab. And as I said, everybody out there, if you're watching on the replay, please do leave comments, ask questions. We will endeavor to get back to you. I have to say, though, this is the last Speaking About Speaking in this guise. I will be back. But I'm not quite sure how yet. But if you want to find out more, then go to powertospeak.co.uk and you can find all my services and what I do there. But also July the 16th, look out for a kind of experimental what this might look like in the autumn. So yeah, come and find me on LinkedIn and I can let you know more. So thank you again, Fab. Thank you to everybody out there, and have a fabulous summer. Bye-bye.
Bye.